Hi friends, Miss Cedarquist here. Today we're going to talk about compound inequalities, and this page of notes is going to go on page 11 of your notebook. This is 1-6, and our learning objective is to write and solve compound inequalities using inverse operations. And today's date is 2/12/2020. Our language acquisition objective is to identify solve compound inequalities using academic vocabulary. Sorry for that typo. And our essential question is, what are compound inequalities and how are their solutions represented? So first, some vocabulary. A compound inequality is made up of two or more inequalities. So we're first going to just do an exploration of what compound inequalities is all about. So if you look at number 1, part A, you see not one arrow and dot, you see two. So compound inequality is two or more inequalities. It's more than one. So this first one is called an OR inequality because it has arrows going in opposite directions. And we first need to discuss which one of these we have to name them. So my first step when I do this is to identify where the dots are on the number line. I see -3 and I see 2. So I'm going to put -3 here and I'm going to say 2 here. Now my next step is to figure out which inequality sign goes in the blanks. I don't know. I don't know what inequality sign goes there. So first things first, I see that this is filled in, it's closed, and since it's closed, it's either less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. So I know that my sign is going to have that or equal to sign. Now I need to discuss whether x is less than -3 or x is more than -3. I know that -4 is less than -3. And my arrow goes to all the numbers less than -3. So this guy is x is less than -3. -3 is bigger, remember? That alligator eats the bigger number. So my first inequality is x is less than or equal to -3. Or, and now I see this is open, so my options are either less than or greater than. And I know that 3 is bigger than 2. So that means 3 is bigger than 2. So this is all the numbers greater than 2. So 2 is the minimum. So I know that that has to be greater than. And that's my compound inequality. All right, B. First step is to identify the numbers. So I have -1 and I have 2. Now I have to decide which inequality signs go there. So if I'm looking at -1, I see that it's open. So it's either greater than or less than. Those are my options. And I know that -1 is bigger because everything to the left is smaller. So that means it's going to be less than. And on the other side, I see the number 2, and all these numbers are greater than number 2. I also see a closed dot, and since it's closed, it's either less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. So I see that x has to be all the numbers bigger than or equal to negative or +2. And that's my compound inequality. All right, now we're going into and statements. So and statements, look at the arrows. They don't go in opposite directions. They overlap each other. So that means that I have an arrow going this way and an arrow going this way, and that's why they overlap. So our first steps are always still to just write the numbers that we've got. I've got -4 and I've got 1. I've got a closed circle at -4. So this guy is either less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. And I have an open circle at 1. So it's either going to be less than or greater than. Those are my choices. So looking at -4, my arrow goes to the right. So that means all the numbers bigger than -4, which means x has to be bigger than -4. So I'm going to choose this one. X is greater than or equal to -4. And then for my 1, my open circle, I'm going to look and I'm going to see, oh, 0 is less than 1. So that means my arrow is going all the numbers less than 1, which means 1 is bigger than x. And that is my compound inequality. Now, and statements can also be written as x in the middle, the minimum, which is -4, and 1 on this side. All I did was just put x in the middle and then put the minimum, which was -4, on the left and the maximum on the right, meaning the smallest number and the biggest number. So that is also how and statements can be written. If you see that in your book, it's an and statement and the arrows should overlap. Let's do one more. D. It's another and statement. So my first step is to identify the numbers. I see -5 and I see 3. Now I need to identify which inequality signs go in the middle. So at -5, it's closed, so it can be less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. And at 3, it's open, so less than or greater than. Those are my choices. It's a 50-50 shot. You get it correct. So if I look at -5, I see that my arrow is going to the right, which means all the numbers bigger than -5 are to the right. So that means x has to be bigger than -5, which means I'm going to choose greater than or equal to. And x is, for the open circle, if I look at the 3, I know that the arrow is going to the left because they overlap. And since the arrow is going to the left, that means all the numbers smaller than +3. So I'm going to choose less than. Less than goes there. And in order to write this as a compound and inequality in one statement, we put x in the middle. So I'll try and highlight this in color. So we put x in the middle. And then we always typically use less than signs. So we're going to put less than here for 3 and less than or equal to here. And then we're going to put the numbers that correspond to those signs. So -5 and 3. That's the other way it could be written. All right, now it is your turn. Try it. You need to try E, and you need to try F, and then you also need to take a crack at this chunk summary number 1. And then I will meet you on the back. Also, before I forget, question or connection. All right, see you on the back. All right, now we're on the back side of the paper. So we have to solve compound inequalities and graph the solution set on a number line for or compound inequalities. So when you see an or compound inequality, it's going to give you 2 inequalities and it's going to say or in the middle. We also need to remember that when we multiply or divide by a negative number, we have to reverse the inequality sign to maintain a true statement. That is from our old page of notes from last week. So first we're going to solve both of these inequalities like they're separate problems, but they're still part of the same problem. So I'm just going to look at this first problem here. I'm going to do it all in red. So I'm first going to do the inverse of addition or subtraction. So I see subtraction, so I'm going to do the opposite of subtraction, which is addition. So I'm going to add 7 on either side. And then I get 5x is less than, and 13 plus 7 is 20. Now I'm going to divide both sides by 5, and I get x is less than 4. And then now I'm going to graph it. So I have an open circle at 4, and I have all the numbers less than x, which is this way. Okay, the next one I'm going to do in blue. the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the opposite of addition or subtraction. So I see addition, so I'm going to subtract. -3, -3. And then I get -4x is greater than 8. Then I'm going to divide both sides by -4. And when I divide both sides by -4, I know that I need to flip the inequality sign. So I get x is, instead of greater than, it's going to be less than -2. So -2, open circle. And I see that x is all the numbers less than -2, so we go to the left. Now I'm going to combine these two graphs together. So if I were to combine both graphs together, I'm going to see that my arrows actually overlap, but not in the same way as an and statement. An and statement looks like this, right? They're overlapping. But an or statement can either, so this is an and, but an or statement can look like this. Or it can look like this. It really doesn't matter. It can be 2 arrows or it can be 1 arrow. It really does not matter. So in this case, we're going to have -2 here and an arrow. And then we're going to see that 4 with an open circle. And technically, we can't include that -2 because it's a compound inequality, but that whole thing right there is the answer. It does overlap, but that's the answer. You just combine both graphs. That's it. Okay? All right, let's try B. I'm going to help you out. I'm going to give you guys the answers. So you guys need to get to the answers, and then you need to try graphing it. Okay? So pause. Try it. Try it. Don't show up with this blank. Try it. Okay? I'm going to give you the answers. Try and get there. And then this one we're going to do as a group by yourself. Okay? This one's your you do. All right. Okay, so I got x is less than 3 for the first inequality, and then I have x is greater than or equal to 5 for the second inequality. Now graph this one on this number line, and then graph the left one on this number line, and then you're going to combine both to make one number line. Okay? All right. I am going to end this video for today. This is it. And then go ahead and try your chunk summary number 2. And you guessed it, question or connection. And just like that, we're almost done with these notes. Video number 1 complete. I will see you mañana. Bye.